Hello ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, this is Lunar M coming in with the first episode of How to Duel. In this series, I'm going to be teaching you how to play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Can be a fairly complex game, but if you understand concepts, you should be able to get this fairly quickly. If you don't, that's okay. Because you should just have to watch this a few times. Maybe come let me know if you need help. You know, you can find me in various places here on YouTube on Dueling Network under one of 5 different names: Lunar M, Solter, SBDA Dreadroot, and Double Star Unknown Double Star. You can find me on Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Maker. Star Unknown Star is my username. You can find me on Yu-Gi-Oh! Dawn of a New Era, which is a derivative of YGO Pro. Dawn of a New Era is its name. On there, I am Double Star Unknown Double Star. I am also here on YouTube. So, if you need me, just let me know. Send me a private message here on YouTube. Leave a comment below here on YouTube. Send me a private message on Dawn of a New Era. Wherever. Alright? So, let's get started, shall we? With part 1, the field. Okay. This is your field zone. Alright? As you can see, there's quite a bit going on here, so let me explain everything in a little bit of detail. This is your deck zone. As I'm sure you can imagine, the deck zone gets the deck. This is where your spells, traps, effect monsters, normal monsters, ritual monsters, that's where these are. Okay? Pendulum monsters. That's your main deck. That's where the main deck will go in the deck zone. Now, we also have the extra deck. The extra deck zone. This gets your fusion monsters, your synchro monsters, your Ixie monsters, and pendulum monsters under specific conditions. Well, not really specific, but under game mechanics, which will be talked about a little later in this series. Alright, and then you have your graveyard. This can be considered your discard pile. This is where your spent spells and traps go. This is where your destroyed monsters go. Unless they are, pendulum monsters. 9 times out of 10, this is where you're going to be putting your dead stuff. The graveyard. Alright? This is your field spell zone. There is a type of spell card called a field spell that affects everything on the field. And turns the dueling area into a new field, so to speak. Examples would range from Sogan to Mystic Plasma Zone, Laser Clip, Mound of the Bound Creator. Those are just a few. We'll talk about those in more detail in a later episode. This right here is your spell and trap card zone. Maybe I should make this a different color. This way you can... Alright, there we go. That's better. This is your spell and trap card zone. That's where your typical spells and traps will be placed, either during activation or setting them. That will also be explained in a later episode. This is just focusing on what the field looks like. And then, not finally, but nearly finally, you've got your monster card zone. This zone is actually one of the most important in the game. This is where your monsters are. Most decks rely on monsters to win. Attack, damage to life points. Alright? Finally, right here and here, you have your pendulum zones. The pendulum zones are very special, and they only fit pendulum cards. When pendulum cards are in the pendulum zones, they are counted as spells. I will touch on that again, and I will touch on that in a later episode. But every spot on the board is important, and if you can figure out what's what, this is the deck zone. This is a pendulum zone. This is also a pendulum zone. This is the extra deck zone. This is the field zone. This is the graveyard. Monster, 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 monster. Spell and trap, spell and trap, spell and trap, spell and trap, spell and trap. If you can remember what all of that is, then you should be set in an actual duel when you understand gameplay mechanics. If you already do, wonderful. Now you know what the entire board is. If you missed out on the pendulums, now you know where they are, and now you know that they're not just randomly shoving cards in their graveyard, because before pendulums came out, the graveyard was right there, and the field zone was right there. Alright, so that does it for this episode of How to Duel. Tune in to the next one to learn about monsters and summoning. That'll be a longer video since it's encompassing 2 different points. So, take care. Hope to see you again soon.